Vimesh, thank you for joining us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So let's skip the buzzwords and shiny objects. What is IT modernization really?
So I think the reality is, right, it's the underpinnings to help advance kind of the outcomes of our government agencies, whether that's really accelerating things like patient experience or customer experience or even enabling the workforce in better and faster ways than we've ever done before.
And how does modernization affect people, whether it's those in agencies or the Americans who depend on these services?
So the reality is that every modernization activity should be directly tied to an outcome like enabling a citizen or a patient or a warfighter. Modernization just for the sake of modernization is really just going to be a lot of time and money wasted. So for modernization to really be successful, it has to drive mission partners within agencies and create these outcomes, not just create new IT capabilities.
What's the biggest story in your mind in federal IT modernization today?
That's a great question. I think the biggest story is I feel like we've really started to reach this tipping point. Over the last 3 and 5 years, we've seen a lot of federal agencies create innovation programs. They have chief innovation officers, chief modernization officers. They're creating special organizations really focused on innovation. And I think all that momentum has been growing and growing, and that over the next few years, we're going to see this tipping point where agencies are really just going to kind of rapidly accelerate their modernization. And it's really the sum total of the people and the process and the culture and the technology all coming together. So, I hope to see that in the next few years.
And finally, what's the biggest risk agencies face today with their IT?
I think the biggest risk is really modernization just for the sake of modernization. So a big IT modernization project that creates faster storage or bigger computers really without an end goal in mind is really ultimately the biggest risk. Every modernization activity really needs to be tied to what outcome are we trying to create? What problem are we trying to solve? What are we trying to do better that really impacts the users, the citizens, the warfighters? And if they're tied very closely together, I think we'll be really successful. And if they're really decoupled, then I think that's really the biggest risk in modernization.